I never thought I'd become one of those people posting on Reddit about something that happened to them. I used to read these stories late at night, wondering how anyone could ignore so many warning signs. Now I know. Because when something strange happens slowly, you explain it away. Until one day, you can't. 3 months ago, I moved into a small apartment complex outside Portland. Nothing fancy. 2 floors. 6 apartments. Mostly older people. The rent was cheap because the building had terrible insulation. And half the lights in the parking lot never worked. I worked remotely, so it didn't bother me. Apartment 4 was directly across from mine. The landlord mentioned someone had rented it recently, but was never home. That seemed true. I never heard footsteps. Never saw lights. Never met whoever lived there. The only thing I noticed was food. Every day. Sometimes twice. Uber Eats. DoorDash. Local pizza places. Chinese food. Thai food. Groceries. Every single day. At first I assumed the tenant worked nights. Maybe they slept during the day. Maybe they hated people. Not my business. But something bothered me. The deliveries were never taken inside immediately. A bag would sit outside for 30, 40, sometimes 60 minutes. Then eventually it disappeared. I never actually saw anyone open the door. Not once. One afternoon I happened to be bringing groceries in when another delivery driver arrived. He knocked. No answer. He called. No answer. He sighed and left the bag. As he walked away, he looked at me. Guy in there never answers. You've met him? I shook my head. The driver frowned. Funny. What? I've delivered here like 20 times. I've never seen him either. Then he laughed. Guess he tips well. I laughed too, but it stayed in my head. About a week later, I couldn't sleep. It was around 2:40 in the morning. I was watching YouTube with headphones when I heard something metallic outside. Not loud. Just clink. 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 I muted the video. Silence. Then plastic bags rustling. Very slowly. I looked through the peephole. The hallway lights were dim. Apartment 4's door was open maybe 3 inches. Just enough for darkness inside. On the floor someone's hand reached out. Not their body. Just a pale hand. It grabbed a delivery bag, then slowly pulled it inside. The door never opened wider. It simply closed again. I stood there for another minute, waiting. Nothing. I told myself maybe whoever lived there was disabled, or embarrassed, or sick. There had to be a normal explanation. There always is. A few days later, I ran into our landlord. I casually asked about apartment 4. He shrugged. Quiet tenant. Pays 6 months in advance. Best renter I've got. What's his name? The landlord thought for a second. Honestly, I don't remember. That caught me off guard. You don't remember? I handled everything through email. He never came to the office. He mailed copies of his ID. That sounded strange, but legal. Maybe. The landlord laughed. As long as the rent clears. I don't ask questions. 2 nights later I got home around 11 p.m. There was another food delivery sitting outside apartment 4. A family-sized order. Enough food for 4 people. I unlocked my door, walked inside, started making coffee. Then I remembered I had forgotten my phone in the car. When I came back outside less than 2 minutes later, the food was gone. The hallway was completely silent. No footsteps. No closing door. Nothing. It was impossible. I would have heard someone. The walls were paper thin. I stood there staring at the empty floor. That's when I noticed something. The welcome mat. It had shifted. Only slightly. Like something heavy had dragged across it. I bent down to straighten it. Underneath was a fresh wet footprint. Barefoot. Much larger than mine. And pointing away from the apartment. Not toward it. I should have ignored it. Instead I took a picture of the footprint. The next morning it was gone. The hallway had been cleaned. Or at least someone had wiped that exact spot. Nothing else looked touched. That bothered me more than the footprint itself. Over the next few days, I started paying attention. Not obsessively. At least that's what I kept telling myself. Every delivery, every sound, every time I walked past apartment 4, the pattern never changed. Food arrived. Nobody answered. The bag sat outside. Then somehow it disappeared. I still never saw a person. One afternoon, another neighbor introduced herself. Her name was Linda. She had lived there for almost 9 years. After talking for a while, I casually asked, "So who's in apartment 4? She looked confused. "What do you mean?" "The guy across from me." She frowned. "I thought that apartment was empty." I laughed. "No. Someone rents it. They get food delivered every day." She stared at me for a few seconds, then quietly said, "I've never seen anyone go in or come out." I assumed she was exaggerating, until she added, "The mailbox hasn't been opened in weeks." That night I checked. She was right. Apartment 4's mailbox was overflowing. Advertisements, bills, coupons, even packages that had been folded and forced inside. No one had touched any of it, but somehow someone kept eating. A few days later I worked from home. Around noon I heard another delivery driver. This one sounded annoyed. He knocked several times. Nothing. Then he called someone. I heard him say, "Yeah, same apartment." No answer again. He left the food and walked away. I waited. 5 minutes, 10. Nothing. 15. Still there. I quietly opened my door. The hallway was empty. I looked at the bag, then back toward the stairs. No one. I don't know why I did it. Curiosity, I guess. I walked over and looked at the receipt. The order wasn't addressed to a person. It simply said resident. No name. No apartment nickname. Just resident. That gave me chills for reasons I still can't explain. I went back inside. About 20 minutes later, I checked again. The food was gone. I never heard the door. Never heard footsteps. Nothing. That evening I bought a cheap Wi-Fi security camera. Nothing fancy. Just one that recorded motion. I pointed it directly at my front door, which also happened to face apartment 4. If someone came out, I'd finally see them. The first night, nothing. Second night, nothing. Third night, around to 17 a.m. the camera detected movement. I opened the recording immediately. At first nothing happened. The hallway was empty. Then apartment 4's doorknob turned. Slowly. The door opened only a few inches. Exactly like before. No one stepped out. No face. No body. Just darkness. Then the camera glitched. Static. Frozen frame. 3 full seconds. When the image returned, the hallway was empty again. The door was closed. I watched it 6 times. There was no explanation. The motion alert had triggered, but the recording never showed what moved. The next morning I checked the camera itself. It worked perfectly. Every other recording looked normal. Mail carriers. Neighbors. Me leaving for work. Only that one clip had corrupted. I uploaded the video to a tech forum. People immediately started commenting. Compression error. Wi-Fi interference. Cheap camera. Maybe. Except one person noticed something I hadn't. They paused the frame right before the glitch. Zoomed in. Circled something. There in the narrow opening of the apartment door was what looked like an eye. Watching the hallway. Watching my camera. I wish I had never seen that screenshot. Because once I did, I couldn't stop looking at it. And somehow, the longer I stared, the more it looked like I was smiling. After seeing that screenshot, I stopped sleeping normally. Every little sound in the hallway made me look through the peephole. Every notification from my security camera made my heart race. Most of the time, it was nothing. A neighbor taking out the trash. Someone checking the mail. A delivery driver. Normal things. But apartment 4 never felt normal again. A week later, I finally decided to ask someone who might actually know something. The mail carrier. He had been delivering to the building for years. When he arrived that afternoon, I walked outside pretending to check my mailbox. "Hey," I asked casually, "do you ever see the guy in apartment 4? He stopped sorting letters, then looked toward the apartment. "You mean the one that gets all the food?" "Yeah." He shook his head. I've never handed mail to anybody there. What do you mean? I mean exactly that. I've delivered here almost every weekday for 3 years. The mailbox fills up. Eventually someone empties it. But I've never seen who. That sentence stayed with me. Eventually someone empties it. Not every day. Not every week. Just eventually. That evening I started paying attention to something else. The windows. Apartment 4 had 2 windows facing the parking lot. The blinds never moved. Never. Not once. No lights. No television. No shadows. Nothing. Out of curiosity, I opened a website that showed public utility records. Electricity usage. Water usage. It wasn't exact. Just estimated monthly numbers. Every apartment in the building had normal usage. Except apartment 4. Its electricity consumption was almost zero. Not zero. Just barely enough to power a smoke detector. Yet someone supposedly lived there, ordered food every day, paid rent 6 months in advance, and somehow used almost no electricity. That night I barely slept. Around 3:11 a.m. I heard it. A soft click. Not outside. Inside my apartment. I sat up immediately. Silence. Then another click. Closer. Like someone testing a lock. I slowly walked into the hallway. Everything looked normal. Then I realized what I was hearing. My front door handle. Someone was turning it. Very, very slowly. Not trying to force it. Just enough to check whether it was locked. I didn't breathe. The handle stopped moving. For almost 30 seconds nothing happened. Then 3 quiet knocks. Not loud. Not aggressive. Almost polite. Tap, tap, tap. I stood frozen. Who knocks on someone's door at 3 in the morning? Without saying a word. After another minute I finally looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. Completely empty. No footsteps. No elevator. No closing door. Nothing. The next morning I checked my security camera. The recording showed me exactly when the handle moved. I skipped to that moment. The hallway appeared empty. Then the handle on my door slowly turned by itself. No hand. No person. No shadow. Nothing. Just the handle moving. The recording didn't glitch this time. It was perfectly clear. I watched it over and over. There was simply no one there. I almost convinced myself it had to be some mechanical problem until I noticed one detail. Across the hallway apartment 4's door was slightly open, only a few inches, exactly as before. And for the entire minute that my door knob was moving, it never closed. It was as if someone inside was watching. I called the landlord that afternoon. I told him someone had tried my door during the night. He promised to come by after work. When he arrived, I asked him if we could check apartment 4 together. He hesitated, then shrugged. I guess we can knock. We walked across the hallway. He knocked. No answer. He knocked harder. Still nothing. Then he pulled out his master key. I'll just make sure everything's okay. He inserted the key. Turned it. Nothing. He frowned. Tenant changed the lock. Can they do that? They're not supposed to. He tried again. The key wouldn't move. For the first time I saw the landlord look genuinely uncomfortable. He stared at the door for several seconds, then quietly said, "That's strange." As we turned to leave, we both heard something from inside. A chair scraping across the floor. Slowly. Deliberately. Neither of us spoke. The landlord looked at me, then at the door. Without another word he walked away much faster than before. And for the rest of that day, he never answered another one of my calls. The landlord disappeared for 3 days. Every call went straight to voicemail. Every text stayed unread. At first I figured he was avoiding the situation. Then I started wondering if something had happened to him. Apartment 4 became impossible to ignore. Every time I opened my door, I looked at it first. The food deliveries never stopped. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, sometimes dessert an hour later. Enough food to feed an entire family. Yet no trash bags ever appeared outside. No empty boxes. No soda cans. Nothing. It was as if every meal simply vanished. On Friday evening, I came home later than usual. As I walked up the stairs, I saw another delivery driver standing outside apartment 4. He looked irritated. "I've been here 15 minutes. I nodded. "Yeah, that happens." He looked at me. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Is there actually someone living here?" I hesitated. "I honestly don't know anymore." He laughed nervously. "Good. Because this address creeps me out." Before I could ask why, his phone rang. He answered. "Hello." A pause. Then his face changed. "You what?" He looked at the apartment door. "I'm literally standing outside right now." Another pause. "No, I haven't delivered it yet." He slowly lowered the phone. "The customer says he swallowed. They already received the food." We both looked at the delivery bag. It was still sitting between us. Sealed. Untouched. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Then the driver quietly picked the bag back up. "I'm canceling this order." He walked away without looking back. I never saw him deliver to our building again. That night, my security cameras sent another motion alert. 2:43 a.m. I almost didn't check it. I wish I hadn't. The hallway was empty. Again. Then very slowly, apartment 4's door opened. Only a crack. The camera captured something different this time. A shadow. Not a clear person. Just a dark shape standing behind the door. Completely still. For nearly 2 minutes. Not moving. Not blinking. Just watching. Then my phone buzzed. Another notification. Motion detected at front door. I frowned. The camera was already recording. How could it detect new motion? I opened the second clip. My blood froze. The second recording showed the inside of my apartment. My living room. My couch. My kitchen. It was my camera. Filming from inside. As if someone had picked it up and turned it around. The recording lasted 4 seconds. Then ended. I ran into the hallway. The camera was still mounted exactly where I'd left it. Facing apartment 4. Exactly the same. I checked the memory card. Nothing had changed. No missing files. No sign anyone had touched it. But that second clip was still there, showing my apartment from inside. The next morning I drove to a hardware store. I bought better locks, door braces, a second camera, window alarms. For the first time in my life, I was genuinely afraid to sleep in my own home. That afternoon, Linda knocked on my door. She looked pale. "I need to show you something." She handed me an old photograph. It showed our apartment building about 10 years earlier. Different paint, different cars, same layout. She pointed toward the second floor. There, apartment 4. Standing on the balcony was a man. His face looked strangely familiar. I realized why. It was the same face from the tiny screenshot, the eye behind the half-open door. Linda spoke quietly. "He disappeared." "What do you mean?" "He rented that apartment. Then one day, nobody ever saw him again." I stared at the picture. "But someone still pays the rent." She nodded slowly. "I know." Then she said something I'll never forget. "Every tenant across from apartment 4 eventually moves away. You're the only one who stayed this long." That night at exactly 3:11 a.m. someone knocked again. 3 slow knocks. Tap, tap, tap. This time they whispered my name. The whisper was barely audible, just enough for me to recognize it. My name, perfectly pronounced, soft, calm, like someone who already knew me. I didn't move. I didn't answer. I simply stared at the door from the other side of the room. Then another 3 knocks. Tap, tap, tap. Silence. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Eventually, I convinced myself it was over. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. Apartment 4's door was closed. Everything looked normal. Almost. On the floor, directly in front of my door, was a paper bag. No delivery driver. No footsteps. No notification from my camera. Just a bag. I waited until sunrise before opening my door. The bag had no restaurant logo. No receipt. No name. Inside was a single sandwich still warm. A bottle of water. And a folded piece of paper. It read, You should have answered. No signature. Nothing else. I threw everything into the dumpster across the street. Then I booked a hotel for the weekend. I told myself I just needed a break. On Monday, I returned with 2 police officers. I didn't tell them about whispers or strange videos, only that I believed someone had entered the building illegally. They knocked on apartment 4. No response. One officer tried the handle. Locked. The landlord finally answered his phone and arrived 20 minutes later. He looked exhausted. He admitted something he hadn't told me before. I've been trying to contact the tenant for months. You said he paid 6 months in advance. He did. But after that, no more payments. So why didn't you evict him? He looked embarrassed. Because every inspection somehow never happened. What does that mean? He didn't answer. Instead, he handed the officers another master key. This time it worked. The lock clicked. The door opened. The apartment was empty. Completely empty. No furniture. No bed. No refrigerator. No dishes. No clothes. No food. Nothing. The rooms echoed when we walked. Dust covered almost everything, except the floor near the front door. There the dust had been disturbed, as if someone had been standing in exactly the same spot for a very long time. Facing the hallway, facing my apartment, the officers searched every room. Nothing. One of them even laughed. Guess somebody pranked you. I wanted to believe him. I really did. As we were leaving, I noticed something inside the bedroom closet. A small metal hatch in the floor, barely visible beneath old paint. The officers forced it open. It wasn't a basement, just a narrow maintenance space between the walls, too small to stand in, but large enough for someone to crawl through. The flashlight revealed fresh marks, recent ones. The dust had been disturbed. The tunnel continued beneath the entire second floor, connecting every apartment. One officer crawled inside for about 30 feet, then backed out. It branches, could go anywhere. They called the building inspector. A week later, the entire complex was evacuated. The inspector discovered that decades earlier, illegal maintenance tunnels had been built during renovations and never documented. Most had been sealed. One had not. It ran directly behind apartment 4, behind mine, and behind every apartment on the second floor. Someone could move through them without ever using a hallway, without ever appearing on a camera, without anyone hearing footsteps. The building was eventually renovated. Apartment 4 was demolished and rebuilt. The tunnels were filled with concrete. The landlord sold the property. I moved across the country. I never went back. About 6 months later, I received an email from someone I didn't know. No subject. One attachment. A photograph. It showed my old apartment building after the renovation. Apartment 4 was gone. In its place was a brand new wall. At first, I didn't understand why someone had sent it. Then I zoomed in. Standing in one of my old apartment windows was a man, looking directly at the camera. The photo resolution was terrible, but I recognized him immediately. The same face from Linda's old photograph. The same eye from my security camera. The same man who supposedly disappeared years earlier. The email contained only one sentence. You moved before it was your turn. I changed my email, my phone number, everything. I never received another message. But even now, whenever someone knocks exactly 3 times on my front door, I don't answer. Because I still don't know who was living in apartment 4, or if they ever actually lived there at all.